The story of General James McPherson is one of the saddest that comes out of the Civil War. McPherson was extremely intelligent, universally liked, and his death causes a big upheaval, not only in the Army, but also in the lives of a lot of people. On July 22nd, 1864, General Sherman and his army are starting to surround Atlanta. He meets at the Augustus Hurt House with his generals, including McPherson, to talk about strategy. As they're meeting, they hear a lot of gunfire coming from their left, which is where McPherson's division was located. So McPherson gets on his horse, he gathers his staff, and he tells General Sherman, "I'm going to investigate. I'll be back. I'll let you know what's taking place." Well, McPherson will never return. What McPherson finds is a Confederate sneak attack. They had marched overnight to try and outflank Sherman's position. And the Union Army does a good job of actually pushing that back. The Confederates have some success at pushing small parts of the Union Army backward a little bit. And it was in one of these sections that McPherson rides right into. Confederate Captain Beard spots him as he rides right into this line of Confederates. And Beard holds up his sword and tells McPherson to surrender. Instead of surrendering, McPherson rears around, pulls his horse up onto two legs, takes his hat off and tips it, and then tries to escape. Beard orders his soldiers to fire. They open fire, and McPherson is dropped from his horse. Right after that, a staff member of McPherson rides to General Sherman and tells him that McPherson's either been shot or killed, that he heard gunfire, and McPherson's horse had come out with injuries and was riderless. After beating the Confederate forces back, they're able to recover McPherson's body, put it in an ambulance, and bring it to Sherman, and Sherman gets confirmation that yes, James McPherson has been killed. Sherman has one of the doors at the Augustus Hurt House taken off its hinges and laid down, and that's what they put the body of McPherson on. He has a doctor come in to examine. He finds a bullet hole in McPherson's back, and the bullet passes near his heart, and the doctor believes he was killed within seconds. Sherman is incredibly affected by this. He will pace the floor next to the body of McPherson. He's still giving orders as this is going on. He's still in charge, but he continues to look down at the body of his friend. Now, the Augustus Hurt House starts coming under attack as it starts receiving bullets and fire from the Confederates that are pushing forward. So Sherman has the body removed because he feared that the house was going to catch fire. So he has it removed to Marietta, Georgia. From there, the body is taken to Cincinnati and then to Clyde, Ohio, which is McPherson's hometown. There were obviously a lot of deaths in any war. There are several reasons why this one was such a punch to the gut, not only to the Union Army, but to the country itself. There were many people, including General Sherman and General Grant, who felt that General McPherson was going to play a pivotal role in uniting the country when the war was over. McPherson was, by all accounts, universally liked, respected by both sides. He's described as having many noble qualities, and he's extremely intelligent. In fact, he finishes first in his class at West Point, and that was a class that included Union General John Schofield and Confederate General John Hood, both who write letters of remorse hearing about the death of McPherson. On a personal level, the story gets even sadder, because really, General McPherson probably wasn't going to be there at the time of his death. He had requested furlough, which was at first approved, to marry a young woman named Emily Hoffman. However, when the battle for Atlanta begins and starts to take shape, General Sherman can under no circumstance allow General McPherson to go, and he revokes that leave. Now, that's something that will haunt Sherman, but in that situation, in closing in and on Atlanta, he needed everyone that he could get, especially people he could trust. McPherson was a friend of Sherman's, a very smart, very capable soldier that Sherman could not spare for this important mission. So General Sherman revokes that furlough, and McPherson is with him at Atlanta. Now, Sherman will write a letter to his fiancée, to Emily Hoffman, explaining his decision and saying, as soon as it's in a place where I can let James go, I will. I just can't spare him at this moment. Unfortunately, that moment never comes. Emily was in a very precarious situation of her own. Her parents are Confederate sympathizers. And in fact, when the notice arrives to her mother's door that James McPherson has been killed, her mother takes the telegram and says something to the effect of, "Finally, some good news. He's dead," and gives it to her daughter, who then reads it. Just terrible moment, and I can't imagine what Emily was feeling at that time. Emily takes that notice and retreats to her bedroom, where she will stay for 1 year. She will mourn McPherson for a year, not leaving her room. She will allow visitors, especially her sister, but very few. And they bring her meals. She won't come out to eat. Sherman writes another letter to Emily, lamenting the whole situation, telling Emily just how much McPherson meant to everybody. And she will come out 1 year after McPherson is killed, and she never actually marries. She goes to her grave mourning the loss of James McPherson. McPherson's body is taken to Clyde, Ohio, where it's buried, and shortly after, they unveil a statue of McPherson across the street from the home that he grew up in. Many people attended that ceremony, including General Sherman. You can actually visit McPherson's boyhood home. It is a museum in Clyde, Ohio, and I'll leave the link and information in the description of this video. But if you're ever around Clyde, make sure you reach out and visit, because it's a very unique museum. There's a lot of interesting things there, a lot of personal items belonging to McPherson, including his sword. And once you're done with the museum, you can go right across the street and see the cemetery and see his statue, which is beautifully done. It's beautifully kept. It's an amazing area. The town is very protective of General McPherson and that story, and it shows in the way that everything is kept. So if you're in the area, please look up the McPherson Museum, the Clyde Museum, and take a tour, ask for a tour, because it's definitely a unique experience, and there's a lot of great things to look at.